Hello, everybody, and welcome to I'm Listening, Stay Connected. I'm Listening is a 24/7, 365 initiative, and I'm Listening works to destigmatize talking about mental health. We got a great show planned for you tonight. We've got Gregory Zarian from HBO's Westworld. We're all binging that show. I'm so thankful for some of the media that's out there right now. And also James Q Simmons, acute nurse practitioner. And we're going to be getting a little bit of update on some of the terms and concepts that you're hearing slung around, including hydroxychloroquine and physical distancing and whether or not that's been successful. But let's talk about some good news. I wanted to just start the show with something that makes us feel good. There's a lot of people that are jumping in and really trying to help out. Lady Gaga has raised $35 million. That is a phenomenal number. And I also have seen that the Twitter CEO, Jack Dorsey, $1 billion. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because, again, right now, we're really needing to pay attention to what we call collective care. And that means looking at the impact we have on those around you. I'm still seeing in the news that people are trying to find gray areas and loopholes and different ways to still break the rules. So God bless it. But we're seeing landlords locking the doors on people that aren't following the rules, businesses, churches, and all different kinds of groups that are still helping spread good old COVID-19. So I just want to remind everyone that this week is a really powerfully important week, and we need to be more thoughtful about our time outside and our exposure to others as we try to flatten the curve. But most states governors have been pointing out that this week is going to be really imperative. So I know here in California, we're working really hard to honor that. And we're advising that this week isn't the week to go grocery shopping unless it's absolutely imperative. So try to maybe take the week off if that's possible and really zero in on the social distancing. So I wanted to talk tonight about exhaustion. It's one of the things that's becoming a really familiar and common thread for a lot of people. And the exhaustion for most of us is a sign of small scale trauma. Now, what does that mean? Because a lot of people, when they hear the word trauma, they are thinking of things that are life threatening or near death. Now, that might be what we call a large scale or big T trauma. But smaller level traumas are just as important. And what that means is we are in a state right now where all the necessary things that we're doing, okay, that we're advised to be doing as far as staying home, isolating, not going outdoors, those are things that kind of work against some of our natural impulses and resources, right? So it's imperative that we're following the rules, but there is a necessary negative side effect to that, right? And that's our system doing what it's supposed to do. So right now, what's going on is we're all experiencing a lot of stress. And what can happen is a trauma response where we're flooded with stress hormones, but also adrenaline. Even though you might say to yourself what a lot of people are saying, including myself today, I've done nothing. I haven't necessarily been highly active. How is it possible, though, that I'm feeling so exhausted? That's because the trauma state is creating the release of these hormones, and it's not tied to activity. It's something that's happening in your body. And so once the adrenaline wave subsides, we crash. That is why we are so tired and not necessarily even sleeping well. That is how trauma works in our bodies. So what does that mean for all of us? Well, I've been talking a lot about all the different preventative ways to really help your system. And I've been bumming some of you out by letting you know we need to go easy on the alcohol. We need to be a little thoughtful about the foods we're consuming. Again, it's all about the nutrient-dense, plant-based meals. It's about limiting the alcohol. It's about staying hydrated. And there's also this component of what I'm calling the trauma trifecta. What does that mean? It's the three things we need to really be careful about how they interface in our life. It's the news, it's social media, and it's also the conversations that we're engaging in. So you want to make sure that that trifecta, the news, social media, and the conversations you're having, that they are not always about these stress-inducing conversations about COVID-19. Why? Because that will keep our body through the duration of our day in a trauma state. We don't want to do that. So you need to take time away from those three factors and track how often you're having those three factors enter your life so as to make sure that you are giving yourself hours and hours of time away, because that's what's going to really ground us and soothe us. So again, it's news, social media, and the conversations you're having. So again, it's that difficult balance of being there for each other, staying connected, but also setting boundaries around what you're encountering, because God bless some of us. We are constantly swimming in these forces and it's overwhelming our systems, and we have to give them a break. So, we'll be checking in and saying more about that on the show because I'm making sure I'm giving you guys the tips and the perspectives. If you want to join the conversation, you can do so by tweeting at #I'mListening or by bringing your questions to our Loveline IG page in those DMs, and we'll be answering those throughout tonight's show as well as throughout our show during the week. But now let's switch gears, and we're going to be chatting with Gregory Zarian from HBO's Westworld. What's going on? Thanks for being on the show.
How are you? Thank you for having me.
You've got the good lighting.
I
Well done.
I did that on purpose. I had to.
Yeah, I'm going to need you to come help me with mine. Mine's not as good as yours, but the bar's high now. So tomorrow night, it's going to be better for me.
Thank you.
So let me start by asking you the question I'm asking everyone, because again, the whole purpose of I'm Listening,
sir.
Stay Connected is to really normalize the conversation around mental health. So let's start by asking, how is your mental health right now?
At this very moment, it's good because you said the lighting is good. For the most part, here's what I took notes already of what you invited us to do. Not a lot of news. Pay attention to the social media and don't only talk about COVID-19. So my mental health is actually on a daily basis. It's really, really good because we know what's happening. We know that there's an international pandemic. We know that unfortunately people get coronavirus every day. We know that people are dying. We know the facts. But for me, I want to stay in the solution. So for the most part, my head is good. I think I want to be of service. I want to reach out and call people. I want to see what I can do to help. I know what's happening. I just want to not be dragged down by the facts of what's going on. So I limit my news to a little bit in the morning and a little bit before dinner. And then I just kind of check out. And if something's going to change, somebody I love is going to call me, or I'll wake up and I'll see that little bit in the news in the morning. So I'm trying to really just be positive and focused. And as you said, think of other things. Be there for friends. I have a sister-in-law, and she makes handbags, and she decided to make masks, and her company is called Masks for a Cause. So a friend of mine called, and she was out of a mask today. So I gave her a mask. I want to do things that make people feel better, not make people feel worse. That was a long answer, but that's how I'm coping with a lot of this.
No, I thought that was really beautiful because right now, some of what's lending itself to more trauma for some people is they're feeling so helpless and out of control. And what you just said is focus on what you can control. And what we can control is what we're doing with our day and with our time. And if we focus it, like you said, and like your friend making the mask, your sister, it really allows us to have a little more joy and positivity around us. And that helps.
Well, because it's true, doctor. And I was saying to somebody today, there was life before this. There's going to be life after this. So how do we get through it? And again, I know what's happening. I know that I social distance. I know that I wash my hands. I have my gloves. I have my mask. I'm listening to what we're told to do. So I'm not oblivious to any of it. Everything else is up to me. The only thing I'm accountable for is my response and my reaction to what is going on in my day, in my world, my family and friends' day, and in the world. There's nothing else I can control.
Yeah, and it seems like you're doing what I'm trying to advise people to do, which is stay ahead of things. Don't wait until you're feeling completely dysregulated and depressed to start to do the self-care. Like if we do it on the front end, we don't necessarily have to get that bad.
True, and here's I make a point every day to look at the numbers, who has overcome it, who's I love when they say, I had it and it was really mild. Great. Okay. I want to pay attention to the good stuff. So if somebody calls me and is having a bad day, I can, well, wait a minute. You know what? In California, we are so doing great. We are, all over the country, it's 1 out of 1,000. But in California, we are 0.05 out of 1,000. So it's just being very proactive. And, I'm taking this time, doctor, to see who I want to be through it, during it, and after it. I actually think we're given a great moment to go inside and see what we're about. So I'm outside of being very cautiously aware of how I take care of myself and my health, I'm very appreciative of just the stop time and getting some Gregory time.
Oh, it's really beautiful. I like that concept though of framing it like, how do I want to be through this? How do I want to look back, seeing myself have handled this? Because like you said, what can come out of this is the realization that we have more fortitude than we thought, or newer forms of like self-care that we weren't aware. I know for me, I'm stumbling to these really creative, interesting hobbies that I never thought. I mean, I have literally can't see, but over here's this gigantic puzzle. Like, who does puzzles? I didn't know people still did puzzles, but here I am doing a puzzle and it's been amazing.
Well, you know what I love about that is I was just saying today, every Sunday, my brothers and I lost our mom 20 years ago. So on Sundays, we would bring mom flowers. So on Sundays, I take a spin class and I go to the Melrose Place Farmers Market and I take photos of flowers. And once a week, the flowers are dedicated to the amazing moms and women in my life. Well, I want to turn those photos into a greeting card company. So today I was writing notes about, okay, how do I want this set up? Okay, every flower card gets a name to someone very special in my life. You know, the roses will be Doris, which is my mom's name. There's other women in my life that will get a flower. And so it was very helpful to me to not think about what's going on and then be creative of it, and thought, well, okay, if I create a website, you can pick your card. And I thought, well, that's 2 hours have passed, and I didn't think about anything that was said other than thinking of my mom and how lucky I am to have some really amazing moms and women in my life. So it was, it really touched my heart.
Oh, that's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us.
No, my pleasure.
And as you talk, I'm watching you. You seem very grounded. Is that like your normal characterological style, or is that the work you're doing around self-care at this time?
You know, for the most part, I'm really especially with now, I'm reminding myself to breathe. There's some really great Instagram live posts, Facebook posts of people and yoga and just, you know, I think a lot of our crazy comes from not breathing. So I'm really trying to breathe in and breathe out. Another part is that I say the Serenity Prayer all the time when I get crazy. Luckily, I've been sober for 14 and a half years. And so being sober has grounded me in many, many, many ways. I mean, and here's the thing. I think we're all crazy to some level. I think we all have our, you know, up and out moments. I have really told myself, especially now, to just remember to be kind to myself, go easy. You know, I had a horrible day yesterday, and admit to myself, you know, today sucks, and just be very present with what's going on and how I'm responding to it. Case in point, I spilled a tumbler of beet juice on my computer. So you know, for anybody that spills beet juice on their computer, don't put it in front of a heater, and don't do stupid things with it. And it's just, I know, and I didn't react at all. I'm like, oh, dang it, I'm going to use my iPad then for this interview. You know, so it's beautiful. It's talking myself off the ledge. It's again, the Serenity Prayer. You know, it's my favorite prayer, and it's really simple. It's, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. You know, I can't, you know, Doctor, I can't control what's happening out there. The only thing I can control is what's happening right here. So I'm pretty grounded at this moment, and I'm grateful for that.
That's beautiful. And I think so many people are afraid to let go, which is what I kind of hear in the Serenity Prayer, is just let go and be present, and all will be well. And it's really hard for people to do that. But again, I'm always trying to remind people that the way we're responding, how we're thinking, how we're relating to things is going to impact our immune system. And the most powerful thing you can do is what you just said: care, compassion, letting things go, giving your immune system a break. Because
if you want to go outside and scream, scream. Listen, and here's the thing, because we have hashtag stay-in-home orders, nobody's real. I mean, people are going to see you screaming outside. Who cares? You know, I think we are given such a great moment, I believe, to just find out who we are again. There's a reason this happened. So stop, take a look, and find out who you're about and what you're about, and, you know, celebrate the great things you've done. As much as I want people to be okay, and as much as I want no one to be sick or die, we've been given a great moment to pause and be in the moment and be like, okay, who do I want to be right now in this moment? And I think there's a great difference. I'm trying to respond and not react. And there's a huge difference in that for me. So that's where I'm at.
We have some questions I'd like to answer with us, but before we get to them,
Yes.
I just wanted to ask you, I'm sure you recommend highly watching Westworld as a way to get through this, yes?
I do. There's some really talented people on that show.
I heard as much.
What? Here's what's great about Westworld. Season 1, it's phenomenal storytelling. But what I love about Westworld is I befriended the original gunslinger, Richard Benjamin, and so from the 70s. So it's a treat to talk to him about what it was like and share with him what the new journey in Westworld is these days. It's great storytelling. I got caught up yesterday. And for all of you that aren't watching it, you have to watch. It's so, so good. The actors, Jonathan Nolan and his wife, Lisa Joy, they are, it's a dream to be part of that series.
Congrats. So I want to have you answer some questions with us.
Yes.
This first one asks, I broke 5 years sobriety last week and I got wasted. It makes me feel like an absolute failure. I haven't picked up a drink since that night, but the guilt is killing me. I was so proud of getting my 5 years in January. How do I get back up on my feet? Wow, that's a big question.
You're already back. You haven't had a drink. It takes more courage for you to say, I gave up 5 years, than it does for a lot of people that are still out there drinking. You pick up the phone, you talk to God, you call your sponsor. If you don't have someone to talk to, please get my contact information from Dr. Chris and I'll talk to you. You take it one moment at a time, and you've already had 5 years. You've taken a few days back into it. Good for you, and be proud of yourself. And instead of getting lost in the, oh my God, look what I've done and I've given up 5 years, pick up the phone and call somebody else that may be struggling and maybe saying, hey, listen, I'm this close to drinking or drugging or doing something, and I'm going to give up my sobriety. What do I do? Talk to them and let them know what your experience is, and talk them off the ledge of going out. Be of service.
Beautiful. That's well said. We have another question for you. This one asks, it's been emotionally taxing to be there for everyone constantly throughout the day. Is it wrong to turn off my phone for a couple hours or not answer people who are leaning on me for support?
No, I feel that we all get to have a pause in the day. Even when, there were moments when our father was sick years ago when he passed away, and through sobriety, I was great with my dad. And there were moments where even if my dad called me, I just needed a moment to be okay. And it wasn't that I intentionally didn't want to talk to him. How can I be okay for you if I'm not okay with me? So you got to take a pause. And you can even be as simple as answer the phone and say, hey, listen, I need a little time. And if you don't want to take that time at that moment, circle back and just say, hey, you know what? I was on a self-inflicted hour timeout. What can we do? And schedule time to pick up those conversations. Your personal well-being is just as important as somebody else's. So you have to be okay with you before you can be okay with somebody else.
Yeah, boundaries. It's a beautiful part of self-care, right?
Right. And if you don't have them, who are you? RuPaul says something great. If you can't love yourself, how can you love somebody else? So, and I love everything about that. It's true.
I love it. Good old RuPaul getting thrown in there.
Hi, Ru.
Gregory Zarian, thank you so much for being a part of our show. Beautiful advice. And thank you for just spreading the positivity. You're such a joy.
No, thank you for having me. And thank you again for the notes. Don't watch the news all day, social media, and don't make everything all about COVID-19. And can I do one personal plug? Please. A friend of mine wrote a great book, and his name is Maurice Bernard, and he's on General Hospital. And he wrote a book called Nothing General About It. It's all about mental health. And, we all we all spend time in our brains and in our minds. It's what do you do with it? So especially with who we are and what we are now, just be kind to yourself, period.
Beautiful. Have a great night. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Be well. And I love that, the whole concept of boundaries. It's something that I'm incessantly talking to the patients that I'm working with, people that are calling into Loveline, people on I'm Listening, Stay Connected. Because number one, it's just about us holding space for ourselves, because mental health is something we want to make sure people are prioritizing. Because I'm Listening, part of their initiative is to destigmatize mental health. But how do we improve it? Well, we just talked about it, setting boundaries. Again, it's okay to let those around you know that you need time to yourself, you need time to recharge. Our immune systems require that. Our mental health requires that. So again, now more than ever, really focus on whatever self-care practices make you feel the best and most grounded. Our bodies provide us the most beautiful barometer for when we are getting flooded and there's too much happening to us. So if you're feeling stressed and overwhelmed, that is the sign that you need to start blocking some things out and setting some boundaries. So, all right, we have some more questions. If you want to join the conversation, you can do so by tweeting at #I'mListening or by sending your question to our Loveline IG page in the DMs, and we'll be answering those throughout the show and also throughout the week. I have another question. This one asks, I'm a therapist and a few of my patients have no income and they may lose their housing. How do I support them mentally when their lives are collapsing before them? It's a beautiful question. And it's something I want to talk about down the road on another show, but let's get into it a little bit right now. We can't help other people if we ourselves are depleted. So I'm reminding employers, I'm reminding parents, I'm reminding therapists, I'm reminding partners and husbands and wives that we have to make sure we are grounding and taking care of ourselves so that we can also help take care of those around us or those we are responsible for, right? So as a therapist, please make sure that you are prioritizing your own self-care. It's very easy for us, again, as employers, therapists, parents, burn ourselves out in over providing for others, and that's not going to help anyone. So make sure you're doing your own work. Second to that, there's a lot of people that benefit from sliding scale prices or free therapy. And so try to create some slots in your schedule that provide that. I always offer sliding scale spots. There's a certain number I set aside for people to pay what they can, because I know it's important for me to be accessible. And so please do that as well, because right now, more than ever, a lot of people are needing the help of a therapist. Let me get my phone open. Sorry, I got to get these questions. There they go. Okay, so this other question asks, I read a story about a grocery worker with cerebral palsy who died from COVID and completely broke down because she was forced to work so much to keep up with customers. Where do we draw the line and collectively stop abusing workers for our selfish needs? Wow, bam. Here's the thing. We need frontline workers. And right now, that is an expansive term. That includes a lot of people from the healthcare field, people from the medical field, people that are in protection, such as security guards and police. And frontline workers also include those that are working at pharmacies and doctor's office and supermarkets. And I am so thankful that you're all there for all of us. So I want to just give you all an applause and say thank you. Thank you for doing the difficult work. We would not be able to get our needs met without you. Again, it's probably going to be a conversation around boundaries. We really have to make sure we're taking care of ourselves. I'm thankful to see that when I go shopping to the grocery store, I see the people that are working there wearing gloves, wearing masks, and protecting themselves. And that's something we all need to be doing. So just keep protecting yourself, following all safety precautions. Businesses and organizations are posting the precautions. They're tracking the news. Also follow the news and the current recommendations, which now is recommending that everyone wear a mask. So just stay up to board with all of that. Okay, right now we're going to talk with James Q Simmons, acute nurse practitioner and founder of Ask the NP. What's going on, James? How are you?
Hello, Dr. Chris. I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. We finally got you on the show.
I know. How about that? It finally worked. And I'm glad. Thank you for calling me a cute nurse practitioner. Wow, that was nice.
I love it. Throwing the jokes in there.
You got.
I have a lot
we
of
have
questions
to.
for you.
Sure, of course.
We do. I'm trying to laugh as much as possible. It's one of the most soothing things. So yes. So let's talk about the physical distancing and the success of that. I was watching the news and they were saying that although this week is supposed to be a really important week and we have to be very thoughtful about the social distancing, are we flattening the curve? Is it working?
It really seems like that the curve is starting to flatten. And I sort of want to explain what that means. I think some people have kind of been misinterpreted what flattening the curve means. So we expected this peak of patients coming into the hospital environment, so a surge of patients. And that's different depending on what community you're in the United States. So very obviously, places like New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Detroit, Louisiana, they are really reaching their peak right now. They're having different situations than more rural areas, and even places like Seattle, which may have reached the top of their peak, and now their numbers are starting to plateau and fall down. So what we mean by the curve flattening and these numbers slowing is that peak of patients going into the hospitalized environment is not getting as sharp and as high as we originally thought. And we really right now can trace that back to probably really early physical distancing. The places in the United States that took physical distancing actions early are tending to see a more flattening of the curve than other places.
And weigh in on this piece, because again, I'm a big proponent of everything you just said, the social distancing piece, following the protocols. CDC is constantly trying to, give us up-to-date information, but give a little bit of a talk to those that are still hanging out with family and friends outdoors, quote unquote 6 feet apart, but every now and then you see someone standing next to someone or sitting by them. Some people still, I don't know if it's that they feel invincible or untouchable because they don't think they meet the criteria of those most at risk, or if they're just kind of like playing around in the gray area. But what message would you give to those folks?
Well, I think, and this is something that you talked about before, about how it's really difficult when we're in the middle of something like this and it's not directly impacting us. So, there are 48 of the 50 states have shelter in place, safer at home orders right now. But even in some of those states, if you're not in a community this is really impacting you, you don't know someone who's had COVID-19 or had to be hospitalized for it, this feels very foreign. And I don't mean to use that word in sort of a xenophobic kind of way, but it just feels odd to you. Why am I losing my job, not able to pay my rent, unable to see my loved ones, unable to, in lots of different communities, like I'm not able to go on dates, I'm not able to do all these different things. For all of these individuals that this may be happening to that have no relation to me. And so it's very much a human nature. And obviously you understand this, Dr. Chris, that it's very much human nature that if it's not impacting me directly, I'm less likely to take action on it. I'm less likely to be really aggressive about that action as well. So what I will tell people is that what we try to focus on in medicine and nursing and everywhere that we can is the data. And so at the very bottom line, if you can say, all right, we are already this far into this thing, and now the health experts are starting to say, hey, this physical distancing thing is working, but people are still getting sick. I think if we take the notion, it's sort of like a workout. And I related it this way earlier in this week. It's sort of like you're 42 minutes into a workout, an hour-long workout, and you're like, well, do I really need to do this last 18 minutes, or am I good enough at the 42 minutes? You know that there are incremental benefits to working out that last 18 minutes. So I need everybody to just keep pedaling on that spin bike or doing whatever you can, finish that workout, because if we all do this, those numbers will flatten, and then it really won't impact you directly.
And I guess that's what I want, like that healthy anxiety to maintain, because I think, and I'm talking to some of my patients and they're saying, they seem so disconnected from what's happening because no one that they directly know has been impacted or, gotten a positive result. And so it seems, like it's getting familiar to them and also like it's not within reach. And so I like what you're saying. Sure. I also want people to come out of this time with more of a collective consciousness and just having more care and compassion for the way they impact others in general. So I'm hoping that can come out of this. And I also feel shamed about my last couple minutes of my workout by that comment.
Well, I was going to say, one of the things I was going to say, Dr. Chris, is that I feel like shaming's not working. It's sort of like, right. Telling people to quit smoke, smoking's bad for you. That's the last thing, especially as an ex-smoker. That's the last thing I ever wanted to hear. Smoking's bad for you. Yeah, I know, but I'm struggling to quit anyway. Like the shame thing doesn't work. And so that's why we sort of have moved towards, okay, well, if shame's not working, and if, hey, your grandma might be someone who's really sick and in the hospital and she's high risk for getting really sick were she to contract COVID-19, if that's not working for you, then I like what you said, Dr. Chris. Let's sort of tap into our collective consciousness. You can take this on as your do-good deed of the next decade if you want to. And really, at the end of the day, when we have been in 100-year events like this, wars, pandemics, all of these things that really impact all of us, we're just asking you to stay home. And while that's not trivial, I'm not saying it's easy, it's also, we're just asking you to stay home at the end of the day. We really are.
Yeah, and thankful for me, I was jolted into it immediately because I had a mom who had a scare with COVID, and she met every criteria for high risk, from pneumonia, respiratory issues, her age, like everything. And so that really brought it close to home quickly. So let's also close by jumping into a very punchy topic, the hydroxychloroquine, which is, out in the news a lot because we have different people, that are supporting it. Others are saying it's very dangerous and risky. So help us make sense of that topic.
So hydroxychloroquine, for those who may not have heard of this, because like you said, there are people who are taking breaks from COVID-19 news, and I'm a big fan of that, by the way. So if you haven't heard of this, hydroxychloroquine is also known as Plaquenil, is the kind of easier name to say. It was first developed in the 1950s as an anti-malaria drug, and it worked really great for that, except malaria developed a resistance to it. So then they found later on in the 80s that it worked really well for individuals who had certain types of autoimmune disorders like rheumatoid arthritis, lupus. And lots of people use that medication still today to keep their rheumatoid arthritis, their lupus, other processes in check so that they have less pain. They're sort of able to do their daily lives better. Well, there was a little bit of evidence coming out of China early on in very small studies that said hydroxychloroquine had an impact on people who were diagnosed with COVID-19 and sick. They may have had better outcomes. However, what the controversy with this medication is, we typically, as you obviously very much understand, Dr. Chris, and have explained to your listeners and patients before, we take years to develop medications and safety test them and check the efficacy of them. So essentially what they did is say, this group of individuals got hydroxychloroquine, this group of individuals did not. Well, some people in this group got better on the whole more than this group. But what they were not able to do was check for all of those confounding variables. So did the people in the group that got better, did they have less hypertension, less diabetes? Were they intubated earlier? Were they intubated later? There were all these other factors that went into that. So it made it impossible to be able to just point to hydroxychloroquine as saying, this is what's going to be like the end all, cure all, be all for the medications. Unfortunately, what's happened is that it may work a little bit, but there are some really intense safety issues with this medication. In particular, when you take hydroxychloroquine and you match it up with azithromycin, or what most people know of as a Z-Pak, it can cause an arrhythmia. So the electricity in your heart gets kind of wonkadoo, and it can actually throw you into cardiac arrest. So it's not completely benign to just throw this medication around like Donald Trump is saying that we should do. Everyone just start taking this medication. I'm not saying it's not going to work. It might. I think it's just too early, though, to start giving this medication to everyone, and especially prophylactically, which is something he's urging.
Yeah, I've been, every time I'm watching this get thrown around in people's opinions, it's fascinating. It scares me because not everyone is a critical thinker, and they're not able to really look at what we're talking about. So that was very clarifying. I have some questions that came in that I'd love for you to answer with us.
Of course.
The first one, please, thank you. First one asks, what happens when hospitals reach capacity? I'm having nightmares about getting sick and rejected from the hospital because it's full. I think that's a really powerful anxiety.
Yeah, that is a really intense anxiety. Yeah, you see me grab my heart. It hurts me as someone who works in a hospital environment. So you're never going to get rejected from the hospital. I will tell you this: if you come to a hospital and there's not room for you, they will find a place for you. Now, it may mean that they put you in an ambulance and take you to a different hospital. It may mean, depending on where you live. Let's say, in Los Angeles, also in New York, we have those ships, the USS Comfort and the USS Mercy, off of our shores. You may end up going to one of those places. So you're going to be able to be treated. So I don't want anyone to worry about that. And that's what we do when the hospitals get to capacity. The U.S. National Guard has built tents in different parts of New York. So there's other hospitals there. They also are taking patients, putting them in ambulances, and maybe just driving them even just 15 or 20 miles away to another very capable hospital where they do have some room. So I think that's a really intense question, and I bet you it's causing a lot of anxiety. But I want you and everyone listening to know that if you ever get sick enough that you need to go to the hospital, go to your local hospital. And if there's not room in that hospital, they'll find a place for you.
Beautiful. James K. Simmons. Thank you, Q Simmons. Oh, see, I'm changing your name on you.
I'll take
so much. All right. We got to definitely have you back, though, because I have a lot more questions, and that was very eloquent. Thank you so much.
Happy to. I'd love to. Thanks, Chris. You too.
Be well. Yeah, so I love that, the whole anxiety piece. There's a lot of people that are concerned about access to hospitals, even for things non-COVID related. So I like hearing that you're not going to be turned away, and that as best as we can, healthcare is there for you. If you want to send one of your questions, you can do so tweeting at #I'mListening or to our Loveline IG page. We'll be answering those questions because we'll be back tomorrow. And on our next show, we have Ray Parker Jr. of Ghostbusters fame. Come on, we all grew up on that show. I cannot wait for this one. We'll see you tomorrow, 5 p.m. Pacific, and that's 8 p.m. Eastern. Y'all have an awesome night. And as always, thanks for hanging out with me.